بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين. We are still discussing the chapter of objects whose subjects are not mentioned, and the author says rahimahullah وهو على قسمين ظاهر ومضمر, and this type of object whose subject is not mentioned is of two types, and the manifest and the hidden. فالظاهر نحو قولك, and the manifest, some examples for the manifest are, and I've translated it here word by word, but if I was to translate it in a way that would make actually sense in English, I would say the examples. Some examples for the manifest object are ضرب زيد, Zaid was hit. ويضرب زيد, Zaid is being hit. أكرم عمرو, Amr was shown kindness, and أكرم عمرو, Amr is being shown kindness. So here, as you can see, he gives us two examples, or four examples, and he shows us both the past tense and the imperfect tense and the imperfect verb, and he also changes the subject. Just so you know, he changes the verb and the subject to give you a different example as well. So basically, it makes it easy for you to come up with your own examples as well. So ضرب, what's happening here? ضرب زيد. ضرب, what was the initial form of ضرب? Wasn't it ضرب with fatha, three fathas in a row? So if you remember in slide 80, we mentioned the way you make a verb suitable for an object whose subject is not mentioned is you make the first letter madmum, you give it and you make the second to last letter maksur, right? This was in the case of past tense, yes. And how do you make the future tense?
Present future.
Present future. How do you make the imperfect verb? How do you change the form of an imperfect verb?
The first letter would still be madmum, and the second to last letter would have a fatha, which is
مفتوح.
Yeah, Sheikh. Maftuh. It would be a fatha. Yeah, Sheikh.
Exactly. So here, that's what we are seeing here. ضرب زيد. ضرب, that's the past tense, and يضرب is the imperfect verb. And as Brother Marajul said, the first letter is made madmum and the second to last letter is made maftuh. Right? So very easy to memorize. Same thing with ukrima. Ukrima is a past tense, so the first letter is madmum, has a dhamma, and the second to last letter is maksur, has a kasra. And the same thing with the yukramu. Yukramu is imperfect, so the way you make an imperfect verb, change it to bina majhul, we say it in Arabic, meaning its subject is an unknown. You make the first letter as madmum and you make the second to last letter maftuh. So that's why we're saying yukramu. Yukramu. Are you able to see the diacritics on yukramu?
Yes, Sheikh.
Okay, yukramu. Yeah. So that's manifest. That's very easy. We're just mentioning names explicitly instead of using what pronouns. And then he says, rahimahullah, wal-mudmaru 12 nahu qawlika. And the hidden objects whose subjects are not mentioned are 12, such as the following. and the hidden are well okay, ضربت. So if it was again, it's a very simple. So the same rules apply. So which part is the verb part? The highlighted yellow part is the verb part, right? We said ضاد را ba. That's the verb. So so what we're doing is actually the pronoun is not being changed. The pronoun is the same thing, but for example, for singular, for the dual, for the past tense, for the plural, for the feminine, the pronouns remain the same. But which is the actual form of the verb, and that tells you that that pronoun is no longer a subject, but rather an object. For example, when I say ضربت, ضربت, you see how the verb is still the first letter is what is madmum, isn't it? And the
Yes.
second to last letter is maksur, so that has not changed. And then we have just attached a ta to the end to indicate a pronoun of the first person masculine. So what this tells us, this person masculine is not the subject. It tells us that it's not the subject, but rather it is the subject. And if we translate it, it'll become I was hit. It is no longer I hit, but I was hit, right? It is no longer I hit, but I was hit.
Uh,
Yes.
past tense verb.
Yes. And then the same thing with doribna. The na is the pronoun for the plural, for the first person plural, right? So what we are doing here is we are adding a dhamma to the beginning and then a ra, kasra to the second to last letter. The same thing. The verb has not changed. But what we have added is we've added a pronoun, and because the verb is in the form of a verb that uh, whose subject is not mentioned, this becomes we were hit, right? It is no longer we hit, but we were hit. Does this make sense so far?
Sheikh,
Yes, yeah.
the we is due to the presence of noon at the end.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
all right.
noon here, yeah, the noon. Na, this na is the it means we. And then here, the same thing. I'm not gonna mention the verb anymore because the verb is gonna remain the same. We're just gonna change the pronouns. The verb is gonna continuously be. It's gonna remain to be a verb whose subject is not mentioned. So this tells us the pronoun that is attached is always the object. So here, the pronoun is ta, which means you. It means you were hit, right? You were hit. And here again, it's gonna be the same thing, but instead of you as for masculine, it's gonna be you feminine. You're gonna say you were for a female, right? Uh, and any questions? We're gonna move on to the next line, inshallah.
Uh,
Uh,
Sheikh, just changing the diacritical marks on ta from fatha to kasra, it makes it feminine.
yes,
All right.
yes, exactly. So the same thing here. It's gonna be you were hit the dual for the dual, and then you were hit for the plural, and then you were hit for the plural feminine. Okay, same thing here. It's gonna be he was hit for the third person singular. She was hit, and the two were hit, right? For the dual third person, and then they were hit, and then they were hit again for the feminine. Does this make sense?
Yeah, Sheikh.
Okay. It's very simple. As I said, the concept is very simple, but keeping it, meaning memorizing it, um, is a challenge, and that challenge is there's no easy way around it. So it just requires time and requires memorization. It requires us to sit down and try to memorize all of these. So that concludes the chapter of the chapter of the object whose subject is unmentioned. The next chapter we will discuss is the chapter of the predicate. Again, because even though we have not read a lot, but I don't want to overburden you with content, with material, because this needs to be memorized, right? And when there's a need to memorize something, it is better to take it slowly until everyone memorizes what they need to before we move on to the next section. So instead of adding more to your plate, we'll conclude here, inshallah. And next week, if everyone has memorized these verbs, we'll move on to the next chapter. If everyone has memorized these pronouns, I mean, does that sound like?
Yeah, Sheikh.
Okay, so if everyone agrees with that, and if everyone has, if no one has any questions, we can conclude. Any questions before we conclude the class?
Sheikh, just one question. Uh, for a noun, if we have a
Mm-hmm.
singular noun, adding a alif noon makes it dual, and adding a wow noon makes it plural form, right? So this is a verb
Wow.
where wow and noon.
So yeah, so that actually you're discussing what you're discussing is the
No,
what you're
no.
mentioning is the imperfect verb. This is the past tense. So there's no noon in the past tense.
Yeah, Sheikh.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the similarity is that for duality, even over here, the two where hit the dual,
Mm-hmm.
it's alif,
Mm-hmm.
and when it's more than two, three or more, it's wow. And
Yes.
for that, we started that it's alif and noon and wow and noon. So, so I see that I'm just saying that there's a similarity
Yeah.
between the rules.
Yeah. So there's a similarity, and yes, very good. That's a good point. And the noon is not a part of the pronoun. The noon, if you remember, is actually the sign of rafa and in the imperfect verb. So, but so you're only remained with the alif and the waw, and those are the as you said, those are the pronouns in the imperfect verb, and also here they're the pronouns in the past tense verb. So,
Yeah.
good point. That's a good observation. Jazakumullah khairan. Any other questions?
Sheikh, one other question about Sheikh, kana and in. So um, this this phrase inna Allaha
Mm-hmm.
gafurun. Sheikh, from the ruling, we know that the predicate of inna gets
Mm-hmm.
the you know inflection of rafa. So I've written it over here.
Mm-hmm.
So Sheikh, in this sentence, if we removed inna and placed kana,
Mm-hmm.
so this would change into kana Allahu Gafuran, because
Yes.
kana signifies, I mean, um, uh, how do I say it? Uh, when kana is present, the marfu noun is the subject. When inna is
Mm-hmm.
present, the
Yeah.
predicate is the marfu noun.
Maf'ul.
So
Fa'il
in a
maf'ul, yeah.
particular phrase, yeah, Sheikh, in a particular phrase, if we shift around these two words, kana and inna, and their likes,
Mm-hmm.
this would change the marfu noun.
Yes,
The
so this will not change the order of the words as you said, but they will just change the inflections. So it will make
okay,
the like you said in Allah ghafurun. If you add kana, you say kana Allahu ghafuran. You just
okay,
switch the
yeah,
inflections. Yeah, good
all right,
point. Yeah,
okay, Sheikh,
very good
go
point.
ahead, Sheikh.
Jazakumullah khairan for the great questions.
Yeah.
Um,
Jazakallah, Sheikh.
yes. So if no more questions, we will go ahead and conclude. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا.